Welcome to Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are joined today with Marc Hostovsky, who is the CEO and founder of Minoan. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. We are so excited to hear more about everything that Minoan has going on. And really, I feel like your company has just kind of come from out of nowhere and is just making a massive impact just in the last, I don't know, maybe a month that we've known about Minoan. But it's been really interesting to see and just read and talk to some of the other associates you have that work with you. And of course, with you as we've done our pre-calls. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, can you give our audience just a little bit of history about who you are and how you got to where you're at now?
Yeah, sure. So I started, well, it all starts, I guess, at a retail job I took at a company called Jet.com in 2015, which was an e-commerce marketplace. And we spent a lot of time thinking about e-commerce and retail and why we buy and what we buy. That company was a rocket ship. I mean, I joined, we officially launched 6 months after I joined. And then 10 months after that, we were already doing $80 million a month in revenue.
Oh
so
gosh.
it was quite it was a crazy experience. And then the founders sold that business to Walmart. And so then I went over to Walmart. I took over a portion of their sporting goods business for e-commerce, about a $400 million business. Yeah. And really in my time at Walmart, I started working a little bit more on the store side. So spending time in Bentonville, figuring out how they set the modular, how we think about consumers in stores. And just realized, the best product experiences, they don't actually happen on screens in the way they do in e-commerce. They don't happen on shelves in aisles, the way they do it at Walmart or Target. The best product experiences happen in the real world. And that's true of basically any product that exists in the real world that you could think of. It's better to, if you're buying coffee beans, it's much better to pour yourself a cup of coffee with those beans, see how it tastes,
actually try it.
and decide if you want to buy it. That's a lot better than scrolling through some images online or even just looking at a bunch of bags in a grocery store. And you could give that same example with mattresses, with linens, speaker systems, decor, soaps, shampoos, hair dryers. It's pretty tough. Hair dryers are designed to be used on wet hair.
Yeah.
So, trying to figure out how good it is at doing that on a screen is tough. And then even in a store, even if you have like a Dyson hair dryer that's out on display.
Yeah.
Like, all right,
The price does not always correlate. I've unfortunately learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
you think you're okay, it's this much money, it must be a really great hair dryer, but then it's not.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, we can get into this later, but a lot of retail in the world that I came from has really oriented around optimizing around merchandising, which is making the product look like it's really good at something, or distribution, which is like getting in with Amazon, getting in with Walmart, getting in with Target. And this idea of like product quality, it's still important, but I've started feeling, I'm like, is this like not the most important thing anymore? Is it more important to like have like a tactful marketing strategy and get on the shelves? And so I became really interested in this idea of native retail, which is all about putting products in environments where people can actually use them, letting them sleep on a mattress over 3 or 4 days, letting someone use a hair dryer when they're coming out of the shower and their hair is wet, letting someone sit and relax on furniture, letting someone prepare a meal with a ceramic cook set and see what they think of it. And I didn't know exactly, how it would work, but I was like, I feel like there's a better way to do this. And it wasn't until I stayed at a property in upstate New York with my fiance, a vacation rental, and we just had an incredible experience. We woke up, we were like, wow, we never sleep like that. What is this mattress? Like ripping the sheets off the mattress, trying to figure out what it was, checking the linens for tags. Like, where do they get these things?
Right.
That's too funny.
In the kitchen, they had this really nice, it was like this glamping sort of yurt setup. And so they did a really good job of like, there wasn't a ton of space and the kitchen wasn't that big, but they did a really good job of like wall mounting, like the knife set and some appliances. And we were living in New York City at the time. And so we were like, well, we don't have a ton of counter space. We're like, wait, this is so good. The way they did this, we should get this mount. We should get this set. And so I emailed the host, I was like, hey, would you buy all this stuff? We want to buy it. And I got back an email with a bunch of links and just realized that's when sort of the two pieces sort of like married for me. I was like, this is so funny. Like in my world of retail, all these brands are spending so much money to try and create meaningful moments, on Google, on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here we are, like, I've just had an experience where I reached out to the host. They didn't have, like, I'm trying to find them and say, where did you get this? I want it. And yet the host isn't monetizing that or getting credit for that in the eyes of these suppliers in the same way that a Google or a Facebook would. They're handing all this money to Google and Facebook, and Google and Facebook can get you in front of a lot of people, but the quality of those interactions really
different. So, the conversion rate is it's a whole different way of looking at conversion rate, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. And so I became really passionate about this realization. I'm like, man, these people in hospitality, these hosts, like, they have so much value, but they're not monetizing it or really getting credit for it. Like right now, brands view hosts as customers for them to make money off of. And we're like, they should really view them as marketing partners. That is a totally different economic relationship. And was thinking through this. And I was like, well, how would this have to work? Because, well, what do the brands need? They need to see clicks, conversion, customer pathing. They're going to want this information. They're going to want the process to work like this. Well, what do hosts need? Well, hosts are going to need, there's so many brands out there. They're going to need a way to pick products and see everything in one place, see when it would get delivered. They need to save money. They should not be paying full retail. They should be getting really good discounts on the stuff. And so that's what sort of inspired the founding of Minoan, is building this platform to really help hosts and hospitality professionals more strategically manage the relationship between them and their suppliers and anything that goes into their space. And then on the back end, we have this shoppable experience, which, we have a card here, but this would sit in the property and it says, found something you like, scan this code to shop the space. Okay. And you can sort of connect the products that you've brought into your space and illuminate them so that when guests are going through, they're like, man, I really love this colander. I really love this stool or the rug or the pendant or the chandelier, and just kind of connect it full circle so that when those moments of inspiration happen, hosts can make it really easy for the guests to bring these products into their own life and collect commission checks.
We'll be back in a minute after a word from our premier brand sponsor, Wheelhouse, the ultimate revenue driving machine.
We began using revenue management dynamic pricing tools, as I said, in March of 2020, because we got to the point in the growth of our company where we either needed to hire a person for rate management or we needed to bring technology on board. For me, and the way that I like to manage our rates, it was just a better decision to bring in technology to help with that.
That's Lance Stitcher, owner of Seaside Vacation Rentals. Lance and his wife, Elaine, manage 280 condos and beach homes in Ocean City, Maryland, and Chincoteague Island, Virginia. This innovative duo has leveraged dynamic pricing and technology to 10x their business over the past 2.5 years.
We sat down with Lance to find out how Wheelhouse has played a huge role in this growth. Where exactly have the revenue gains come from?
They came in all seasons. We trusted dynamic pricing, and a home that booked for $4,000 a week all of a sudden was able to book $6,000 a week. And we really had a hard time wrapping our heads around that. But it actually began to become the norm. Some of our properties in the off season, the owners previously had notions of what their home was worth on a minimum night, and maybe that number was $300. And Chincoteague and Ocean City are extraordinarily seasonal markets. The rate management tools are telling us that maybe that rate is $140 during the week and $175 on the weekends. And had a lot of owners that scoffed at that and said, no, I'm going to hold the line. And I had a handful of owners that said, okay, we'll try it your way and see what happens. And we went from doing, in certain buildings, we had condo units that went from virtually nothing or $1,000, $1,500 a month to doing over $8,000 a month.
Revenue management has become a critical element of Seaside's strategy for homeowner acquisition and retention. How does Lance use the information from Wheelhouse to help him win new owners and keep existing ones?
We'll hear about that later in the show. It's all part of Wheelhouse's spotlight on exceptional property managers.
Especially as I feel like Airbnb has really given rise to hosts putting a lot of effort into the space, right? And making it really a unique accommodations. And that's different than things used to be. I mean, the cookie cutter set for a living room, bedroom, 3-bedroom condo, those still exist, but Airbnb has really just emphasized how you can make something into really a unique experience that sets you apart from the competition. So I'm sure when people stay in these places, this has got to be something that's been going through guest minds for a long time. Yeah. So it's going to be a welcome addition to our scene.
Yeah. Whenever we talk, there's lots of different approaches to hosting, just like there are lots of different approaches to hospitality, just like there are lots of different approaches to real estate. There's different segments you can go after. And I think we really focus on hosts who do spend time and effort designing these spaces. I mean, they almost see them as a form of self-expression. They really love the idea of being, hospitable, like having people come into a space they've designed, having a great experience. And I think that those hosts are getting rewarded in a few ways. One, by Airbnb directly, because Airbnb is sort of rewarding these like really unique experiences. But two, you can pull yourself out of competing on price a little bit, pull yourself out of just competing on, okay, what's the cheapest thing I can find in Atlanta or whatever. Right. If you create the sort of distinct experience, you compete on experience, and there's a positive impact on ADR. And for us, that creates a whole flywheel, because then you're attracting people who have more disposable income, who are more likely to buy stuff that when they see it in your property, which means more commissions going back to the host. And it sort of creates this nice little flywheel. I mean, really, if you do this well, because you save money up front and then you earn commissions on the purchase. So if you buy a mattress at, let's say we can get you 60% off on a mattress. So you're paying 40% of retail. And then in your property, you're selling the mattress at full retail because they're, the guests are consumers. So it's full retail. And if you get a 10% commission, 10% of retail, if you sell 4 mattresses, the commissions cover the cost of putting them in.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so if you're like, okay, well, how long is this mattress going to last? Like, like, all right, so sell 4. And like, think about that for every single amenity,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, our goal is to really make it so that hosts and hospitality, I mean, we work with boutique hotels as well, but that these groups, the investment in products in their spaces, it's no longer just a cost center. It's not something we look at. Right? It's like each one of those things is actually a revenue generating asset.
Yeah. But it becomes a part of your marketing tool as well. So I want to like kind of go back. So you had what Alex and I define as that aha moment. That was your stay within this, this vacation rental. And so how did you go from that aha moment to, I'm going to call Pottery Barn and ask them to do this with me? That to me is like, that had to have been a very bold call to make. But then, you went after some really strong brands, and they're amazing. And as a shopper, I applaud you and I love it. So
we finally met a man that loves shopping.
Yes. So can you tell us about how all that kind of came into play, and, what got you from that moment to connecting with these companies?
That's a good question. Like, I have to go back down it wasn't, it's so funny. I think sometimes when you're in the moment and you're really passionate about something, you focus so much on the way you think it should be that you sort of maybe blissfully ignore all the reasons that it wouldn't, I wasn't even thinking that these brands would be like, no, we won't. We're so passionate about, going to them and being like, look at your marketing department. How much, what's your marketing budget? Where's all that money going?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And going to brands like a West Elm or a Crate and Barrel or Serta Simmons, or, these brands like Serta Simmons, for example, we were like, think of how many people are already sleeping on your mattress every
night. Yeah.
They just have no idea. like, what if we just illuminated it and just let them know, by the way, this is a beauty rest. It's this type of mattress.
And to try before you buy, I mean, you're eliminating the return amount.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, I'm sure returns are significantly less for somebody who buys something in from Minoan that's already experienced it.
Yeah. Our return rate is less than, I think, 0.2%, because people have already used these products.
That's incredible.
The only
what is the general return rate for
like,
e-commerce?
20. Yeah.
20,
20,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of depends by category. So in clothing, it's like actually much, it's like 30% because people order 3 of something and send 2 back. But generally it's 20% in e-commerce. And I think that I was so passionate that these were really valuable moments that I sort of just like, went to these brands before we even had a business or anything. Yeah. And I was like, you guys should do this. You need to figure it out. And it kind of reconfirmed. They're like, well, we would love to work with the host community, but it's really fragmented. And there was lots of groups that had done, I think Sonos, for example, had done a program for hosts where they could save money on it. And then they nixed it because they're like, we have no way of validating. Like, I don't know if this person actually has a rental, and I don't know how it's being set up. And so we were able to solve for some of that on the brand side. Be like, well, we have a platform. They apply, we audit it, we approve them if they're a good fit. We're working with them in different ways. But I think it's just because I know from my experience at Jet and Walmart, because I just was intimately familiar with the challenges that brands are having, which right now brands are having a really tough time getting in front of people. I mean, there's been so much change in the last decade in retail. You have Shopify, which means like, wow, it's really easy to build a website now.
Yeah.
You have all these websites that make it really easy to source manufacturers. It's like really easy. Like, let me find a mattress manufacturer. Oh, cool. Let me call them up. Oh, what do you want to do? Like, that was much harder back then. It's really easy to integrate fulfillment and payment processing with companies like Stripe on the payment processing side, or Shippo or ShipBob, who will take care of all the inventory stuff for you. And it's really easy to target customers by just putting money at Facebook and Google and saying, I want to get my product in front of these people. So, Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So it's gotten so much easier. So when things get easier, you sort of lower the barriers to entry, the markets get flooded. And so what happens now, before there were like 10 mattress in a box brands. Now there are 400. Before, like 5 main cookware brands. Now there are 100. And so every category has gotten more and more brands. And so brands are like, well, how do I make sure that people know that my thing's different and it's unique? And it's like, well, let people use it, see how it holds up in the real world. That's the best way. And so this is kind of a long-winded answer.
I love it. Your understanding of e-commerce, I mean, very thorough understanding, brings a lot to this discussion, and obviously to the value of what you've built with Minoan. But I was just thinking, as you were talking about Google, I mean, I know when I first started at Condo World in 2009, they had not really done any pay-per-click advertising at that point. And so when we introduced that, we did a little bit here and there, but we were the first in our market. None of the other vacation rental companies were doing it. And now, I mean, everybody does, but we still do it to a very, very strong extent. And we've been able to, when we see incredible performance from it, but at the same time, the cost to be able to continue to do that continues to just go higher and higher and higher, because now you do have the Airbnb and VRBOs of the world that are entrenching on that limited amount of digital landscape. And it's amazing for us to see. We were just looking at our analytics that even though our organic placement is higher than we were this time last year, our traffic is lower because of all the different things Google is putting into the products there, between what more things that they're trying to sell, because really it is their home, right? It's their land.
It's their land.
Their house on their land. And that's the scary part of it. But I think what you've done is just genius, because it's allowing hosts or property managers to be able to build a marketing source literally on their own land, and it's really to avoid having to go to the extent of, going the whole e-commerce route. I think this just makes a lot of sense.
And I think that hosts we're all very familiar with the experience economy. I mean, that's like the economy and the spend that really pays the bills. And, But I think that hosts, it's beneficial for hosts to get a little bit more acquainted with the attention economy as well, because that's an even bigger. I mean, look at these companies, Facebook and Google, they're printing tens of billions of dollars in profit a quarter. Profit, host, anyone who runs a real estate business does this, but like that's after they pay everything. Yeah. And there's sort of a subprime attention crisis in as consumers. Like, what is that attention worth? Like, what is a 2-second ad on Instagram really worth? We're so overwhelmed with stimulus and advertising that attention is just really important, and like real attention, meaningful attention, not attention where before I watch a video, I'm clicking skip ad. I'm like, all right. Like, what is that attention worth versus having someone in your space who genuinely needs to use these things, and it's on their own time, in their own space. There's no big brother like watching. It's sort of like, hey, if you want to cook something, we got a ton of stuff here, some great products. If you don't, totally ignore it. You can focus elsewhere. I think that attention is so valuable, and hosts need to realize what that's worth and get credit for it. I think the reason why we built Minoan is because as we were peeling back the layers of that onion, like, well, how should hosts approach this? What should they do? We were like, man, actually, to really get the most value out of this, hosts really need to have good technology behind it, because the reality is, like marketing has totally changed. Like a lot of marketing departments, just in the example you were giving, it's like marketing departments have like sometimes data scientists and analysts. It wasn't always like that. It was like, okay, we'll do this billboard. And so, well, then that means that for a host to really succeed in this attention economy in today's age, there needs to be data that can be piped back, to the brands. Well, how do you do that? Well, then you need to build this shoppable experience that ties it all together. Okay, well, what should that feel like? Well, it should be really elegant. It shouldn't just be like, bloop, here's 16 products on a page. It should be by room, by brand. It should be sort of a tour of the space. It should use words that aren't directly focused on retail. It shouldn't say buy. It shouldn't say add to cart. It should say things like explore, discover, shop. Shop,
the feelings.
Lighter word. It's like explore, shop. And we just have such a strong point of view on like how this needs to be done to really unlock the value, that we were like, we just need to build it, because the thought hosts and anyone in hospitality, like there's enough on your plate. There's enough to do. Guests will keep you busy without having to figure out all this other stuff. And so if we can invest the time, the technology to build this other stuff and allow hosts to just kind of plug in and unlock that value, that's what we're really focused on doing. And we get so much good feedback from hosts around like little things that we should add on or do. And we're like, oh, that's a really interesting idea. We didn't think about that. Like, but we could absolutely do that. So it's a fun journey.
Talk us through the process of how a host or even a manager uses this platform.
Yeah. So I can share my screen, but I feel like that won't be easy for the podcast. So the first step is there's an application flow. So if you go to minoanexperience.com, there's a join us button, and we just ask a little bit of information, like how many properties, what's your goal? You like furnishing from scratch, you're trying to do a little refresh, you just want to make it shoppable, let us know. And when we're looking at these, we're basically trying to identify, one, is this a real hospitality professional, which could mean, someone who has one short-term rental is a hospitality professional. We just want to make sure that they have some property they're renting out, and that they really care about it, that they want to make it feel unique, that they want to really make a unique experience. So then we'll approve them. They can log into Minoan. They'll see a page with 200 brands, and then each brand has the discount. So it'll be like, this brand, this discount, this brand, this discount, this brand, this discount. They can filter by category. So if they're looking for art, if they're looking for lighting, if they're looking for appliances, it'll narrow down the list of brands. And we basically have a way where they can click on the link, go to that brand's website. So go to crateandbarrel.com. And we have a Chrome extension where, as they're browsing on Crate and Barrel, they can click a button and the Chrome extension will grab the URL and will grab other product information like color, style, variant, price, title, and then it brings it back to the Minoan cart. So then when you go back to Minoan, in your cart, you'll see this item from Crate and Barrel with the actual link to the item.
Okay.
You just repeat that process for stuff from Public Goods or Blue Land
and you're buying from one place though, right? I think that's one of the main benefits.
Exactly. It's you search and grab products from all these different websites, but you buy on Minoan in one place so you can get a better sense of how does this stack up with my budget? That's sometimes hard to do when you're tracking orders across different sites. Yeah. And the other one is, when is this stuff going to
When will it be here? Yeah. Especially with shipping delays. That's a big question.
Yeah. And that's where we do a lot of work on, hey, when's your install date? Okay, let's see. Okay, here's the stuff. Here's how much it costs. Here's when it get delivered. Here's how much we can save you, and then we're also helping you all the way through tracking. And so we have technology where we'll tell you the status of each, this is either en route or at the facility or being built. This is when it's expected to be delivered. As there are issues, we're very actively involved in customer service. So if there's a shipping delay, and it's like, oh, this couch is now going to get here, and 2 weeks later, host can contact us and be like, hey, that's going to be a problem now.
Yeah. We got renters.
Yeah. And we'll figure it out. Exactly. And so okay. And we also have really interesting data around, we have a unique vantage point where I can see how often these brands ship on time or late. And so if someone, because we do so many orders. So if someone's got an install date of let's say August 10th, and they're ordering something from a supplier where we check the data and they're like, oh, this supplier is only on time 40% of orders. We might nudge host, hey, this is a great couch, but it's at risk. It might not get there in time. And so if this is a hard install date and you have renters, we would recommend going with this brand or this couch because they're on time 95% of the time, and their estimated delivery date is August 4th. So it gives you plenty of time. So we get really actively involved there because there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than that sort of fire drill where you have renters. There's something you don't have. You're like, what am I going to do? Drive to Big Lots and just
right.
put a
futon in there. Sure. Yeah. So I'm a host. I furnish my unit. Do you have I know we talked about, you have a program where they can show the guests that they can buy these goods. Do you do any sort of training with the host to be able to help them message, either through the unit, through their website, through their marketing materials, to, again, talk about that experience that the guest is going to have?
Yeah, it's a good question. Not yet as much as I would like to. I think, we spend a lot of time designing these custom, this is a custom designed holder. And so we spend a lot of time on stuff that makes it as easy as possible. We're like, hey, set this up in the entryway or somewhere else. But I want us to get better at the coaching on integrating the retail experience. Cause we're learning, we'll see, we have some properties that they have a texting system with guests. And so they'll actually text a link to the shoppable experience mid-stay. And we're like, wow, that really works. After someone's been there, after someone's already been there for 36 hours, and they're like, oh yeah, I was wondering what that is. Okay. Ecobee. Okay. Or I was wondering what, it's a really nice way to do it, but we haven't yet sort of internalized those and systemized them for our hosts in an educational way. It's sort of hopefully next year we'll do a better job of formalizing that part.
Gotcha. What about from a design standpoint? I mean, that's got to be complicated for people who don't live where the unit is, and that's a lot of cases these days. Do you have design services to help them pick things out, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so we have a designer on staff, but she's totally overwhelmed. She does a lot of recommending. One thing that she's working on is a designer directory, because we have lots of designers that have worked with hosts of ours, in the past. And wow, the people really like working with this designer. Every time she gets rave reviews, and then it's she already understands Minoan. She's really good at working within the system. Why don't we just connect the dots? Why don't we just make it easy for hosts to work with these designers that have already been vetted? And and we don't get involved. Like, it's like, we'll let the designer set their rate and stuff, but we are working on a way to connect hosts to reputable designers so they can get more tailored help if they want it.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of hosts just bring us their designers and say, hey, my designer, and we're like, yeah, sure. And we set them up with a designer account.
Yeah. Now, I know, Annie and I are both in markets that are primarily condo based. And when a lot of these properties were sold back in the day, they were sold with packages. And then, over the years, there's not really the packages anymore. I think people have kind of redone them on their own. But it seems like there is an opportunity to bring something like that back in a way, but it's got to be in a way that makes it easy for homeowners and property managers to still coordinate that. And I think Minoan could play a big role there. Mm-hmm. Have you had any success with larger managers utilizing the service yet? I know you guys are still fairly young. So
yeah, so our first focus was to help the independent hosts, and then we wanted to work up, but we got a lot of property manager groups that reached out and had said, it's usually either that they're doing procurement services for a host, but it's so much work and overwhelming that they're like, I would much rather outsource this and have you handle it. Or they're not doing any program, they're just doing sort of like OTA management and guest management, but they're not getting involved with procurement, but they see properties where, they're going in and doing audits where it's like, hey, you need to replace this sofa, or this thing's busted, or, we have 2 glasses that broke, and hey, you need to buy this stuff as the host. And I was like, yeah. And then they don't, so it's kind of on both sides, but yeah, we're seeing a lot of success with property managers, and we're building some tooling specifically around lists that property managers are really excited about, where it's like, hey, I can just build a list of like, listen, when you have a kitchen, you need
I love that. That's a good scalable.
Colanders, spatulas, there's so much stuff, and so property managers can say, okay, we like this OXO product, this set of knives, this thing, and then
I really like that. Like that from a standardization as a brand. I think that makes a lot of sense, because you've got these companies like Highgates and the ones that they're actually buying the units, and they're doing it at a larger scale, at more of a hotel type scale, but they're buying them and completely outfitting them with their high-end brands. Williams-Sonoma, they're all going to have the same. That for us, we can't do that with 500 individual homeowners, but I do think it makes sense to have something that this is our recommended list of products, and we do that when we get a new owner, that we give what is recommended to have just as what the item is, but we don't have those recommendations based on how they actually procure it. So, and to be able to have a little bit of better idea of the quality of what they're actually going to get, that's very beneficial to property managers. Especially
in condos, or at least, there's all sorts of types of condos, but the ones where it's like every unit's the same. Every unit's the same. It's like, hey, this like weird wall that's like kind of, it's like this works well. It's perfectly. It's like, you can sort of, work within the space really well. And like design to the uniqueness of the space. And that's sort of, that's what we want to do, but we haven't started working with, we're so young, like, as you mentioned, we're just getting out there, but I think that there's benefits certainly to these sort of, if every unit is very similar. Standardization, it just makes it unlocks the ability to scale also, because it's like, okay, we know this is the coffee pot we buy.
That all of our units are going to have. I mean, it allows us who are not the Highgates and Marriotts of the world to still be able to offer that standardization to a certain extent. So I think you'll have good success there, I think.
I think as long as you have it where it doesn't, getting to your earlier point, their day is full. And if you can make it something where it's simplistic and they can print out a list, or again, send it to a website, that cuts half the battle up. Because I remember when I was in management, and we had spreadsheets for days, and every building had, one bedroom had this is the number of plates they needed, and the number of, knives and forks. And it just got down to this, like, trying to keep up with that on a spreadsheet was just, it was a nightmare. You had to have one person in the housekeeping department that's all they did was just take care of those sheets.
Those people are heroes. We come across. And technology exists where that can be
absolutely
built into a system. One thing that's been interesting for me, just observing, we work with individual hosts all the way up to these big institutionally backed, big money investments in the short-term rental spaces. The ability to have a system around furnishing and thinking about the stuff in your space is typically the biggest gap. Like scaling in this industry is about having a system for working with the OTAs, system for pricing, a system for managing cleanings, a system for customer service and support and messaging. And what we've seen is the things that really slow down when these companies are like, we need to buy 50, 100 homes every quarter. It's like just getting the right products in these homes and installed is where they really start to stumble, to the point where they're like, shoot, we need just 2 full-time people who are just adding stuff to a cart and checking out and updating a Google sheet. And it's like, well, why? I mean, like, it's the technology can exist. That shouldn't be what slows you down, and you take those 2 people and put them on projects that technology cannot solve. Like
absolutely. I know in our business, it is definitely a manual type thing, and that's handled by the property management department. But I know they do spend a lot of time keeping up with orders. And like I said, the owners don't live here. So, I mean, we're still scheduling for our maintenance to go in and, do the install. And it's definitely a time consuming part of the property management side. And it's nice to see the potential for this to really become something that solves, a great time waster. And like you said, I mean, we should be working on being able to provide better experience, provide great experience for our guests, for the homeowners, but not to the extent that we're all having to do these manual processes. That maybe this could be the thing that takes over for it. I hope so.
Yeah. And allowing, I think, these groups to do cool brand partnerships. We have a property in Joshua Tree that was like, we love Joshua Tree coffee. It's a local brand. We love it. Yeah. We want to support them. And it's like, great, we can just throw them in the Minoan experience, and you're ordering and the shoppability. And so, if you own units and you're like, man, I love this. Is actually also just happened. We work with a company called Our Place. So they make these pots. It's like the Always pan. And basically it's everything. It's like a pot, it's a pan, you can do everything. You can steam in it, and it's one thing. And we had hosts that really, really loved it at home and wanted it for their unit. And then we got in touch with the brand. They loved the idea. We get a great discount with them. I mean, great. And it's just a unique product where a host was like, I think this is really cool. I want it to be part of my guest experience. Help me figure that out. And so I get it's kind of on 2 sides, standardizing a process and making it easier, but 2, also allowing yourself to do cool brand collaborations in your spaces with brands that you really like, that you feel like are a good fit.
Yeah. We'll be back in a minute after a word from our premier brand sponsor, Wheelhouse, the ultimate revenue driving machine.
If you're not using a revenue management tool by now, you're probably falling behind your competitors. I mean, revenue management is a huge part of our owner acquisition strategy. Once again, it really comes down to the analytics and the data behind all of these decisions, and being able to explain why your rate should be higher in the second week of July than the first week of July. We have a lot of competitors that have a summertime rate and a wintertime rate, period.
We're back with Lance Stitcher from Seaside Vacations. Getting homeowners on board with revenue management can be a challenge. Lance tells us how the information from Wheelhouse allows them to attract and retain homeowners.
Very difficult to get owners on board with that. There's no doubt about it. It's a learning curve. It was probably more of a learning curve for us, or as much of a learning curve for us as it was for the owners, because we had to learn how to sell and how to explain and how to educate the owners on the changes. And they may not have agreed with why their rates were what they were, particularly in certain off-peak time periods. We also found huge revenue gains early on with the owners that were early adopters.
We all know what it's like to sign up for a new platform or service and be so excited for all the things that were promised by the amazing salesperson, only to be disappointed when the support team is anything but supportive.
So we wanted to know, how is Wheelhouse's support?
I will be honest in that of all of the software products and technology that we use, that they have the best support.
If you want to learn how Wheelhouse can help you 10x your revenue, head over to usewheelhouse.com. They're offering our listeners 50% off your first 2 months. That's right, 50%. Go to usewheelhouse.com and use promo code AlexAnnie or contact them for a demo and mention this podcast. That's usewheelhouse.com, promo code AlexAnnie. Now back to the show.
Well, and I think that, to that point, there are people that are just passionate about brands that they use and they want to put them in their rentals. They may have them in their own home, and the cost of the barrier has always just been the cost. Because again, let's face it, you're going to spend more money on your first home than you're probably going to spend on a vacation rental, especially if you don't own the rental. Yeah. The odds are you're not going to be recommending crazy things, but I would imagine, again, it allows them to get all that stuff that they're passionate about, and then they become an advocate for that brand. And the fact that you've layered in this ability for them to get a commission and reward that, I think that is something that I don't know within vacation rentals that you see a lot of. Thinking on saving the manager money on the front end, but then also giving them a reward on the back end if they continue to use these products. And so can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, you obviously, you've got people that are using the products and ordering from you, and are you seeing good return on that side in terms of paying out to different owners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing some hosts who are adding on. I mean, it's nothing compared to what you make in bookings.
Sure,
like that's
right.
Yeah. It's just a little fun. Sorry.
But we'll have people who add on like an extra week, it's like of the year. Basically the commissions add up to an extra week of bookings. And we have some hosts where we're not really selling much. Maybe it's like a day or 2 days, but we're going in and trying to figure out, okay. And that's the nice thing about doing this across, eventually tens of thousands of properties, is we can say, oh, wow, when the soap and shampoo is in that number one slot, like it does really well. Okay, boom, roll that out to everyone. Okay, it seems like we really need to focus on the mattress. Or, oh, wow, when we add a instructional video about this product, like it does way better. Okay, can we move that? And so it's like sort of the scaled learnings, but we've certainly seen enough success that we're continuing to double down on it and hire and expand. But the goal would be that, again, these things don't even they are investments that pay for themselves, like the mattresses, the beds, the linens, in the same way that the actual physical property, that investment.
Well, it allows you to continuously upgrade, right? If you're able to make some money off of it. And, of course you should see more money in your bookings if you're updating your unit anyways. And really over the last year, we've seen more homeowner revisions coming off of 2021 than we ever had, which is so exciting to see. For a long time, it's just like pulling teeth trying to get owners to add new furniture and redo their units. But they made so much money in the last couple of years that they've been able to, which is exciting for sure. But I think one thing that's really cool too, to really make it an experience for a guest. I mean, if a lot of the guests that we have, and a lot of guests in beach homes and vacation destinations, that these families come back year after year. If you did something every year in that rental that was like, it's something that they could bring home, right? So maybe it's every year, it's a different kind of coaster, and it becomes almost something that it's like more of a collectible from every year that they stay in that property. I think that could be really cool.
Well, that's a good idea. I like that.
We're really interested in helping hosts potentially create their own like swag, like brand stuff. That's another thing that has come up with hosts over and over again, where it's like, hey, I would love to do this, but like, I don't want to, I don't want to go and order the inventory and figure it out and ship it. And so it's like, okay, well, their partners, how would we figure this out? But that idea of this souvenir, like a branded souvenir that they can take back to be part of the memories is, we have a lot of fun with that.
So you've got a lot going on. You guys are still relatively new. Where do you see yourself going, by the end of this year? And then, what's the future? What I know that I think you guys are rebuilding your website. So there's some new iterations of that coming, but what are the next big things for Minoan?
Yeah, the big things for this year are really product improvements in the platform. And so one is improving, some of these are like maybe less fun, but important, but improving the permissioning and admin tools. So we get a lot of hosts who want to add in their designer, or they want to add in a property manager. And it's like, I want my property manager to be able to put stuff in my cart, but I don't want them to be able to check out with my credit card. Like that.
Right.
Or I want my designer to be able to recommend products, and then I can pick some out of those. And so there's a lot of, we're like, wow, this is more complicated than we thought. There's lots of stakeholders, lots of people that want to make decisions by. Yeah. So how do we make our sort of admin tools in a way where it can be really flexible, where you could add in a designer to approve things, you could add in a property manager and give them permissioning. And a lot of improvements around core, like the browse and navigation experience. So getting even more specific around, like, I want to look at side tables, or I want to look at these types of rugs or this. And so better data integrity, and making that, in terms of the site, making it easier to really narrow the range on products you'd want. More brand information. Right now we give a high level overview of brands, but there's lots of information that, like, what do other hosts think? Like, I love to see host reviews, like the shipping information I explain, are these guys, how good are they at shipping on time? Do they have like commercial fabrics? Do they have things that are particularly good for short-term rentals, like washable pillowcases? Is it eco-friendly? I mean, there's a big movement towards this stuff. So getting more data about the brands. And the last one would be this list. We're really interested in nailing this list functionality. And I think that could be a really interesting project to expand on in 2023.
I love that. I mean, having that standardized so that's like, okay, we just got a 1-bedroom at this property. Here it goes.
Or it'd be cool if you could do a Pinterest board for people to be able to
make
decorate.
It. Yeah, exactly.
Especially cool. when you're talking, what that popped into my head when you were saying you've had other stakeholders that are involved in it. It's like, the property manager probably knows more about what would work than the manager themselves, and doing, I don't know, a Pinterest board just came to mind that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what we're going for. And then letting anybody create and share lists. So Annie, if you were like, hey, this was like the bathroom, here's the bathroom I put together, and this stuff looked really good, and I had this little succulent, and it's like, here's how you can recreate this bathroom. Or, it's like anything. Alex, if you had a backyard setup, you're like, this patio is
right.
I think like we did it really well. Here are the 15 items that I put in this patio. It's just kind of, you can use these lists to do two things. One, create a better level of curation at the item level, so you can really go through different looks, and make it really easy to just drag and drop. And instead of being like, I want this from here, this from here, this from here, it's like, no, I just want this look. And maybe you change out certain things. I want this look, but I don't like this rug. I want a new rug in. And so the lists are definitely a big one. And for us, it's about, we still feel like very few people know about us. We're meeting new hosts. I mean, we're getting a lot of applications every single week, and we are going through and approving people and getting them set up. And so I think this year it's about really improving the platform to be easy to use, and incorporate this stuff, and just getting the word out, just letting people know that we're here, so that if they're in a bind and trying to furnish places and strapped for cash because they just put down a big down payment, that we can help them sort of save money, make that process easier for them. And then next year is when I would like to start focusing again back on the shoppable side and getting really smart there around, okay, well, how do we incorporate reviews on the guest side? How do we give some control over merchandising to hosts so they can sort of like control what they feature, what they don't? And
I like that. One of the things I like the most about this is a very low cost of entry, low barrier to use type of service. And I feel like there's a lot of different things that are out there. And as a property manager, you always have FOMO, especially when you go to these conferences, because you see all the amazing things that we can do, and we can't afford to do all of them, don't have the bandwidth to do all of them. But this is a fairly easy one to implement. And it makes our lives easier and the homeowners' lives easier, and it solicits getting better furnishings within a unit. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that. But I have kind of an off-topic question that I've been wanting to ask you about since we had our pre-call with you. I mean, your experience with Walmart and with Jet, like in e-commerce, what are you thinking when you look at, I mean, the digital landscape of vacation rentals and how properties are being booked now? Like, where do you see, what are we missing? What are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? Like, not just Airbnb, Vrbo, but like for traditional vacation rental managers, in these destinations, like what are you, I mean, you're the conversion master. So from an outside view, what do you see?
Interesting parallels, like in e-commerce, it's like you live and die by your images and your reviews.
Yeah. See, that's so true.
And, in this industry, it's the same thing. And I think that there's a lot of parallels. I mentioned this on another podcast, but it's like the world is just becoming more digital. And so it just means that we use, like, the only way to get information digitally right now is through images, video, and copy. And so that's what's true in e-commerce. That's also true in this industry. And the reviews, which are sort of like a trust score, I would be interested, I have my own aspirations. We're currently saving up. I told you I'm getting married after we get the wedding.
Yeah.
We're saving up for a short-term rental. And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I have some really interesting things I want to do with video, like where we would walk someone through the house with a video, call attention to potentially some of the brands.
Yeah.
Okay. And because that's something video has done really well in e-commerce, and there's all this data. There's lots of data around video impact on conversion in e-commerce and other sort of like tool tips and stuff like that. And even like user generated videos, like on Amazon, if you're looking at buying a tea kettle, if you scroll all the way down, it's pictures uploaded of customers who got the tea kettle and sometimes videos. Yeah. And that, so there's lots of things that e-commerce has done that have impacted conversion that I haven't quite seen in the vacation rental or real estate side as much. And I think video is a big part of that. And then user generated content outside of just the reviews.
Huge. Yeah.
There's another one that I'd be interested. Yeah. I'd be interested to see how it would impact bookings. And
that's been a huge part of our secret to our success, but not really secrets all over our site, but user generated content is huge. I mean, just seeing people actually enjoying the space and the destination and everything else is big. And it's the same thing for the interiors and the products too. Really cool.
Yeah. So I have a really off the wall question, but it goes back to, it was one I wanted to ask.
You didn't even know he's signing up for an Ask Me Anything episode, but.
So the name Minoan.
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah.
That is a good question. So the Minoans, they were a civilization that lived on Crete, which was in Greece, an island off of Greece 5,000 years ago. And they have an exhibit. I lived in New York for a while and I liked going to museums and stuff. And they had an exhibit there that was really interesting. And so I just became interested in their culture. And it's really fascinating. Like, they were very advanced for their time. Like, there are lots of historians who talk about how the clothes that the Minoans wore much more similar to clothes we wear today than what other people were wearing at the time.
Interesting.
They were very technologically advanced. They were one of the first societies to build multi-story buildings, to build plumbing, water filtration systems. They were one of the first societies to figure out the exact properties of gold. So like the heat at which you can mold it without burning it, because gold, if it's too hot, you can burn it. And so they created beautiful art. And even socially, there are like just as many depictions of like women with spears and women in thrones as men in their like drawings and art, which is like, this was 5,000 years ago. I mean, think about like, it's just crazy.
Ahead of their time. And I think you're ahead of your time.
So you're ahead of your time.
In a way.
Okay, that's perfect.
Or very timely.
And so it felt like, wow. And they were a mercantile society. So they made all their money through trade.
Right.
And so, it was just sort of inspired by their culture and their namesake. And I was like, we're creating a new type of commerce, and we feel like
absolutely, yeah,
we're ahead of our time. And
revolutionary.
Very, very well thought out name, though. I mean, when you come there's historical meaning behind. I mean, that's cool that you had that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I do remember learning about the Minoans in high school, I think it was.
Wow.
So yeah, but I didn't even connect the dots until you gave that explanation. A long time ago, but really cool. Well, we've got 2 more questions for you. Okay. I have a minute. So Annie, why don't you go first?
Yeah. So from your perspective, so you have a different perspective in vacation rentals than most of the people that we interview. What do you think is a big issue or opportunity maybe that's not being addressed or discussed currently?
Besides furniture.
Yeah.
It's not.
We stumped him. Yeah.
I think it goes back to this. I think if hosts would follow the attention economy a little bit more and understand what's going on in that space, and like even these updates with, I think iOS 13 or 14, where Apple's changing some of the cooking, there's some like big changes happening on the marketing side that are making attention more valuable, which is why the prices of ads are going up, because attention's becoming more valuable.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, again, comparing like, attention, like when you're just like trying to X out of an ad and you're like, whatever, let me move on to it, versus attention, which is contextually relevant where someone's going to use things. I think I would go back to like, think about the value of those moments that you're creating.
And native advertising, right? You said that in the early part. I think that's huge to that, what you're speaking
exactly.
of.
And native, the movement towards native in advertising is like, instead of it being, on an article page, or sorry, on a news article, instead of it being like, Heinz ketchup or Hertz, like rent a car, like native's all about integrating the ad in the copy.
Yep,
so
exactly.
You're writing an article about why Hertz has this special program that's perfect for travelers, and you read it and you don't realize, but it's an ad.
Yeah.
That's native. And I think native retail, weaving the shoppability and the product experiences into this very natural experience. There's no salesperson over your shoulder. There's no like screen. It's like, it's just you and the product. That's something that's really, really, really valuable. And I just don't think hosts think about that enough and are intentional about it. So it's kind of a repeat answer, but I think the biggest opportunity that's not being discussed is the role and the value of the attention in these spaces, in these moments that people aren't thinking about.
That's huge. That's huge.
Excellent point.
Yeah. I mean, that relates to podcasting too. I think a lot of what we do, just talking to guests like yourself and others on the show, it's not an ad, but it is a way for them to talk about what their company does. And when you wrap it into something that's realistic, it's so different than just seeing an ad for Minoan. And it just makes sense, but
it's genuine. And we even take that approach in our own, like we're starting to spend on advertising now. And like when we evaluate opportunities for Minoan in the world, we're much more interested in real native integrations that are actually helpful. Well, that's much more interesting to us than like, you guys starting a podcast with like, and this week's episode brought to you by Minoan. Right. It's like, because it's all about authenticity at the end of the day. And
storytelling.
We are, I guess we are totally overwhelmed with ads all the time. Stimulus, billboards, blah, 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 blah. And so leading with a genuine way that you can help people, I think is good. And that's what ultimately we're also doing in these properties. It's like these products are all there for you to use, the mattress is there. So they should all be helpful.
Love it. So one more question. What does the work that you do say about your life and your journey?
Yeah, another good.
This is
we
a
got
tough
you
one.
deep today.
I'm really passionate about learning and learning more about a lot of different things. And I think that one thing that I've learned about myself, and I think generally, is that like you can change a lot. You can change perceptions of things. And when you kind of like, I think Steve Jobs has this quote where he's like, when you realize that life works in a way where like, if you poke one end, something comes out the other end, like you actually influence the world, it totally changes like your approach and what you want to do. And I think with what we've been doing from Minoan, where it's like, I think this should exist. It has to exist. Like, and just going out and being like, well, we're going to make it exist. We're going to see it. We're so passionate about it. I think that, and I'm really passionate about this with my team, where I'm like, just go out and just go after it and like believe. Don't worry. Who cares if it's a low probability of success? Just because the cost of regret is much higher.
Absolutely.
So just really go for it. And I think as someone who, without this becoming a therapy session, like I feel like
we love these. It's okay.
Younger in my life, I would let fear stop me from doing a lot of things, like fear of failure or fear of looking stupid. And I've sort of, I think, luckily coached that out of myself, where now I'll go and do things, even if they could fail, if the reward is worth it, if you can really make a change. And so I guess what I would say is the work we do is like, it's a big swing. I mean, what we're trying to do is like totally change how brands think about marketing or distribution, how hosts think about curating their spaces and the power of the moments that happen between people and product and spaces, how guests think about shopping. There's a little bit of a behavior change where it's like, we want you to pay attention a little bit more. When you walk into this property, you subconsciously register, you'll be like, wow, this place is like really nice. I really like it. But like, pay attention, look at the candle, look at the furniture, look at the art on the wall, pay attention. And if you like it, but there's so much that makes this like a really big swing for us. And we have to do a lot of things well. And I think what the work that we do would say is like, we like to take big swings and we like to make a big impact, especially when it's something that it just should exist. There's no reason why it shouldn't be this way. It's just that no one's built the infrastructure to do it because it's fun.
I almost feel like in a way, I mean, where this is going to go, nobody knows at this point, but I feel like there's a way that this could revolutionize things in a different realm, that people might choose to stay at places now if they know that this exists based on the furniture that something has, which is kind of a bizarre concept. But if you're going to Asheville, for example, and you know that you are redesigning your house back home and you are looking at different sectionals or something, and as you're looking at Airbnbs, you find ones that has something that you think might look good in your house, that's going to make you choose that rental, knowing that you can try it out for your house back home. I mean, that's like a complete rework of the customer journey if that happens.
I mean, imagine if you were picking, staying in a property, and then we gave you options where we said, hey, you could have one of these 3 coffee makers. You could have one of these 3 mattresses. You could try, are you in the market for bicycles? Okay, we're going to have 3 bicycles in the garage. Like, that's sort of, I mean, if we're taking like our vision of the world to an extreme, I do see a world in which brands like a Dyson don't just think about physical distribution of products through Best Buy and Target. They can actually think about distribution of products in a way where they work through companies like Minoan to just get their hair dryers out into all these places in the wild. And that, like, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, okay, that just changes everything. Because then for Dyson, it's like, okay, Manhattan has 8 million people. If we can get 200 Dyson hair dryers across Manhattan, theoretically, we could have it so that all 8 million people are within a 5-minute walk of a Dyson hairdryer. So try it and use it. And so there are it's funny that you kind of went there on your own, but there are like levels and levels where it's like, well, wait a minute, if you could do it that way, then it's and so, and it's scary, definitely, because it's like, wow, that's like hard.
Well, and I think that's the opportunity where if brands were to partner with larger managers, they could do that at scale. I mean, if you partner with a larger manager that is in multiple markets, I mean, say it's not necessarily a Dyson, but it is a bigger piece of furniture like a sectional. And on their website, it shows you can actually demo the sectional or this mattress in any of these participating vacation rentals in all these places. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, when I go to Nashville, I'm going to book that one so I can also get to try out this product that I'm looking at that otherwise I don't have a way of seeing it. Cause I mean, the, brick and mortar furniture stores are becoming a thing of the past. So it's shipping costs and everything. That's a huge risk when you buy furniture sight unseen.
Yeah.
Well, Marc, I would say, one of the things you said a couple of times, you like to swing big. So I would say keep swinging.
Yeah, keep swinging. Yeah.
Keep swinging. Yeah. What you guys are doing is very innovative. And I think it's got a lot of room to grow, and the passion that you have for it and what we've seen from your team, it runs from top down, bottom up. I mean, there's no lack of it. And it's really exciting to see. So hopefully we'll have you back next year and can kind of recap on all the great things that you've accomplished and your wedding and everything that's been going on in your life. But in the meantime, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they reach out to you?
They can email me directly at Marc, M-A-R-C at minoanexperience.com. And then if you want to join us, we're free. It's a free platform. There is an application, as I mentioned earlier, but you can just go to minoanexperience.com and click join us. And would love to hear from people who are really interested in this topic. I love talking to hosts who are. Yeah, we could, as Annie always says, we could talk for hours. We certainly could with you. We love sharing ideas of just, what if this, what if that? But it has been such a pleasure, Marc. And also shout out to Sage and Allie on your team. We've had the pleasure of getting to know them over the last month or so. And it's just been wonderful seeing what you guys have and where you're going to go. Very exciting. But thank you for joining us today. If anybody wants to contact Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until the next time, take care, everybody. And now a final word from our premier brand sponsor, Wheelhouse, the ultimate revenue driving machine.
If you're overpriced, you will be empty. And if you are underpriced, you will fill up extremely fast. But the market will always tell you what the correct price is. There will always have to be a human factor involved in the process. At least that's the way I feel about it. I don't think AI is going to overtake the industry entirely. If you want to learn more about how Wheelhouse can help you 10x your revenue, head over to usewheelhouse.com. They're offering our listeners 50% off your first 2 months. That's right, 50%. Go to usewheelhouse.com and use promo code AlexAnnie or contact them for a demo and mention that you heard about them on the Alex and Annie podcast.